It's been a little bit since the last time we done a news video, and a lot has happened as we have an announcement for both Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 40, or at least rumors for WrestleMania 41 and Royal Rumble in 2024. But we'll get to that in a second as we start with AEW, as AEW management is said to be very much fans, or have been fans of the work recently of Big Bill and Brian Cage, as Big Bill and Brian Cage were one of the many teams put together in the random team, guess the random team generator matches that saw Adam Cole and MJF team together, and a few other teams be brought up together. So it has been good to see Big Bill and Brian Cage getting a fair shake and a actual opportunity, because both men have been flying under the radar and not really doing much. Especially Brian Cage has not really been doing much of any note, and for lack of a better word, since his return to AEW programming, Brian Cage has just basically been cannon fodder for the rivalry between Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee. But it is good to see them actually doing something worth a damn, because they are way too talented to not be doing something worth something. And it is said that, the work that those two would have done, even though the tournament is over, they're very likely going to be remaining a tag team. So props to AEW for finding a random tag team that works. Props to them. And also, it seems like both Big Bill and Brian Cage seem to enjoy working together, or I may have misunderstood the report that spoke about Brian Cage and Big Bill's tag team, and maybe I thought that they were talking about them when in reality they were just talking about management. Either way, I like the tag team. I think it works, and I think that it shows again why tournaments work, because you never know what positives can come out of a tournament. With that being said, also, Gable Steveson is set to make his WWE in-ring debut at Great American Bash next week against Baron Corbin. Gable Steveson has been making appearances left and right on NXT as the trainer of Eddie Thorpe, heading into Eddie's match with Damon Kemp a couple weeks ago for NXT Underground, which, from what I remember, the NXT Underground match between Damon Kemp and Eddie Thorpe was heavily praised, and Gable Steveson was, I believe, the referee, or maybe it was just Eddie Thorpe's trainer, but either way, Eddie Thorpe and Damon Kemp have had an interesting rivalry, and now Gable Steveson strikes out on his own as the advertisement says, gold medalist versus Golden Gloves boxer, because Baron Corbin is a Golden Gloves boxer. Or he was when, he was in his prime, but, the amount of different things that we never knew that Baron Corbin would do, or had done, whatever the case is, you forget, because of how long he's been there, that he's actually accomplished a lot in his prior career, prior to joining WWE. Football player, Golden Gloves boxer, the list goes on and on and on. But Gable Steveson, this is probably by far one of the most anticipated debuts in NXT, or in WWE in general, in recent memory, because of what this signifies for WWE and one of their top prospects in the Olympic gold medalist, Gable Steveson. I also just want to point out that there's something going on with the dyad and the schism, as the former grizzled young veterans I could be wrong, and I don't know a lot of information about this, but I could be wrong. It seemed like the Grizzled Young Veterans may have been jumped, or the former Grizzled Young Veterans might have been jumped by Ava Rain and two Max Men, so things might be changing around in the schism as as Rip Fowler and his tag team partner, which I don't know why I can never remember the other guy's name. Rip Fowler and his tag team partner seem to have branched out in the weeks leading into the Creed brothers into their tag team Loser Leaves Town match with the Creeds. So now the question is, what happens next? But we'll probably find out as NXT comes a little closer. By comes a little closer, I mean we find out more information. With that being said, we move on to Great American Bash. As I said, Great American Bash is set to take place next week. It is next week's edition of NXT programming, and it is the next major event for NXT, with a number of big matches set, including Roxanne Perez finally getting in the ring with the Reaper of NXT in Blair Davenport. In a Weapons Wild match, and also a 8-man tag team match, or 8-man intergender tag team match is set to take place on that event as well. And now, as of last night, it is a triple threat North American Championship matchup as Mustafa Ali, Wes Lee, and Dominic Mysterio are set to collide for the North American Championship. As well as more to come between now and next week for the NXT North American Championship. With that being said, though, we now look to the most recent edition of New Japan for an update on the G1 Climax, as a number of matches took place on that event, including Sonata versus Kaito Kiyomiya from Noah, Okada versus Yoshihashi, Ren Narita versus Hikuleo, Tangaloa against El Fantasmo, Chase Owens and Yota Tajiri, Tachi and Kenta, Gabe Kidd and Shota Umino, Great Okan versus Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay got the win, and now Will Ospreay measures up with fellow block leaders with 6 points. Shota Umino earned his first win, picking up 4 points. Kenta sits at 4 points with his win over Tachi. Yota Tsuchigi gets his first win and earns 3 points by defeating Chase Owens. Fantasmo defeats Tangaloa, gets his first win, gets on the board at 2 points. Hikuleo gets his first win and earns himself 2 points. Okada gets a win against Yoshihashi and now is the last undefeated Block B competitor with 8 points, leading the block. And the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, Sonata defeats top star from Pro Wrestling Noah, Kaito Kiyomiya. And Sonata is the only undefeated wrestler in Block A with 8 points. The G1 Climax is still very early in its process, and it is something that we will keep an eye on as things continue to develop. But I'm always a big fan of tournaments, as you guys know. I am a big fan of tournaments, as you guys know, and it is something that we will keep an eye on as things continue to move forward, because I think the G1 goes until August or September, but we'll keep an eye on that. And as far as Great American Bash, it is an 8-man tag team match on the pre-show. Dragon Lee, Nathan Frazier, and Ulysses Leon and Valentina Feroza against the Meta 4, Noam Dar, Ora Mensa, Jakara Jackson, and Lash Legend. 8-man intergender tag team match. The North American Championship match, as we mentioned, Dominic Mysterio defends against Wesley and Mustafa Ali. Tiffany Stratton defends the NXT Women's Championship against Thea Hale in a rematch from a couple of weeks ago. This time, though, it is a submission match. Gallus, Mark Coffey, and Wolfgang, with Joe Coffey by his side, defend the NXT Tag Team titles against the family, Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo, in what has been the culmination of a many months feud between the family and the Gallus boys. Gable, Steveson, and Baron Corbin, as we mentioned, the Weapons Wild match, Roxanne Perez versus Blair Davenport, and of course, the NXT Championship is on the line. Ilya Dragunov gets his first shot at the championship gold at the top of NXT against Mello Don't Miss. It's Dragunov Hayes as the main event of NXT Great American Bash next week on July 30th. As it is not normal NXT programming. It is NXT's next pay-per-view. I apologize for the mistake. I thought it was NXT's next program. But it is set to take place this Sunday at the HEB Center at Cedar Park, Texas. And will be on both the WWE Network and Peacock, the first Great American Bash to air on both Peacock and WWE Network. So stay tuned for that, as an unexpected pay-per-view is set to take place this weekend. With that being said, though, that is it for me, and I will see you in the next news video.